Using repetition is one of the best ways of creating harmony from room to room. And in this video, we are going to discover what we should be repeating throughout our home and where, so that we create a harmonious look. So for the first part, what is it that we should be repeating throughout our home so that everything is in agreement, so everything looks and feels tied in together? Well, that's where we want to start with a plan, an overall vision for our home. And that includes things like our design style or a color scheme, because all of those things are important when we are planning out our entire home and planning out all of our rooms, that we have some sort of framework or plan that we can refer to for guidance. And those are the things that we want to repeat throughout our home so that overall our home has a harmonious look. And so when we look from room to room, we sense that everything is tied in together, creating a cohesive look. And the definition of harmony, which is one of our interior design principles, one of those guides that we follow so that we create a wonderful design, is that it means that everything is in agreement and that there is something unifying everything, and everything looks and feels like it's connected and tied in together. And one of the best ways to do this is through repetition. So if you take some time from the very beginning just to plan out what is your design style, what are the things that you love in design to have in your home, and that includes a color scheme and maybe certain materials or even personal style things, like if you want to have a very minimal and clutter-free look. And all of that's really important when we want to create a cohesive look and a harmonious look in our home. So after figuring out what our design style is and the overall look and feel that we want in our home, then where do we want to take that information and repeat it throughout our home? Well, one of the main areas that's really helpful to create a cohesive look is the background or the overall structure of our home. Anything that's kind of built in and part of the overall framework of our home. And that's referring to things like our walls and our floors and our ceiling, and all of the different features and details that are part of that. And this isn't to say that we want everything to be the same throughout our home. In fact, we don't want to do that. But what we do want to do is provide some sort of background, some sort of foundation where everything looks and feels connected, while at the same time, each area or each room has its own unique look. One thing that we could think about doing is using the same type of flooring throughout the main areas of our home. And then we could change it up a little bit in other rooms. That means using one consistent type of flooring and maybe a wood stain color throughout our main areas of the home. But then when we go into other rooms, maybe like a bathroom or a bedroom where we change up the flooring a little bit, we are changing that style and the materials of the flooring, but we're staying consistent with the color scheme. So if we're starting out with very warm tones of a stain color in a wood flooring, then we would want to kind of stay within that warm tone of family of colors when we bring in a carpet or tile, for example. And then on our walls, we could think about using the same color on our walls, especially in those main areas of our home. And if we want to change things up a little bit, which is important to do, that's where we would refer back to the color scheme that we're using. So if we're using a nice creamy white in our main areas, like our living room and our kitchen and entryway and hallway, but then we want to change things up in our bathrooms or in a bedroom or even in a dining room, that's where we would refer to the other colors that we want to bring into our home. Maybe that's where we are staying within that neutral color scheme family, and we bring in browns and tans and beiges and other taupey colors that are all related back to that creamy white, and they're all related to one another. And so that we're still using a consistent color scheme. We're still repeating that color scheme throughout our home, but just varying it slightly in each room. The other thing that we can think about in relationship to our floors and our walls are trims. And using the same type or style of trim throughout our home is one way to tie everything together. And when we use the same stain color or the same paint color on the trim, that is using repetition again. But if we want to change things up a bit, maybe in our bedroom, instead of staining the trim, we would want to paint the trim, but we're staying within that same style of trim. And another feature that is repeated throughout our home, and where we would want to repeat the design style and the paint color or the stain color, would be on all of our interior doors. So it helps to bring everything together when we have one style of interior door on all of those openings, as well as using the same hardware, the same design style, as well as the same finish. And another little detail that's important to keep all the same are just all of your light switches and your outlets. Other features that are helpful to kind of keep within the same design style or the same finish or color are the architectural light fixtures that we have. And that word fixture just means that those light fixtures that we're talking about are fixed to the ceiling or fixed to the wall. They are part of the structure of that wall. They're hardwired in. So for those main areas, those main social areas in our home where we have our entryway, hallway, our dining room, possibly living room and kitchen, it's nice if all of those architectural lights, all of those light fixtures that are either on the ceiling or on the walls are all in the same style or a very similar style. Lots of times it's helpful to even purchase a group of light fixtures from the same manufacturer, because in that way the styles are going to be consistent. And also to stay within one type of finish, because repeating that style and those types of finishes throughout those main areas help to connect each room, creating harmony from room to room. And then when we get into other areas of our home, we can change things up a little bit. We would still refer back to our design style, keeping within maybe a modern, minimal style or something more traditional. That's maybe where in a master bedroom, we want to have a more decorative type of ceiling light fixture. But that style is still similar enough, and the finish is still similar enough to all of the other light fixtures in the home so that it doesn't create this big abrupt change. And then other things to think about that are connected to our walls or become part of the structure of our home would be things like cabinets. So knowing ahead of time what your design style is for all of your cabinets in your home helps to create a cohesive look if you're going to use the same style. So if you have a very modern design style and it's very minimal, you'd have that type of cabinet in your kitchen, but you would also bring that style into, say, your bathrooms. And in your bathrooms, it doesn't have to be exactly the same, but everything is still within that modern, minimal look. And that goes down to all of the hardware that you use on your cabinets. Maybe in your kitchen cabinets, you have one certain type of hardware, but then in your bathroom, you change it up a little bit. And the last kind of fixed features that we may have in our home where it's nice to repeat them throughout our home so that it helps to create a harmonious look would be our plumbing fixtures. This is where we would want to have our design style guide us in the design style of those different plumbing fixtures, as well as to the finishes, so that we create a consistent look throughout our home. Another area to use repetition in our home is how different materials are installed in our home, the design approach of that. So for instance, if we have a modern style in our kitchen, we may be drawn to either traditional types of materials or maybe a more solid surface type of material for our countertop. But what will make a difference is how that is installed and what are the details around that design. So for instance, we would want to have a very clean lined approach to a modern style of countertop. Whereas if we had a more traditional style of kitchen, we may want to add a more decorative detail, say, to the edging of that countertop. All of those things make a difference in how consistent and how cohesive everything looks in our home. Then when we want to bring in furniture and all the furnishings and the fabrics and accessories and art and everything else that goes into our rooms to make them livable spaces, that's where we want to think about repetition as well. That's where we want to think about using the same design style or different variations of that design style when choosing different pieces of furniture and furnishings. That's where we want to stay within our color scheme, our family of colors that we're using throughout our home, so that there's a consistent look, so that when we do go from one room to another room, we pick up on that those colors are part of the overall color scheme, or that they're related to all of the other colors. So when you want to create harmony from room to room, use repetition to help you do that, because it really does create a cohesive look and it also helps to tie everything together. So I'd love to find out from you, what did you do in your home to use repetition to help create harmony? So please share your design ideas in the comments. Thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you next time, where we will discover more interior design. Take care.